Holy shit, I cannot believe I subjected myself to this show again. I cannot believe I just sat there and took it every week again. First up, let's talk about what has got me in such an angry romp after a couple positive reviews. I just watched Gatchaman Crowd's Inside. Okay, I watched it a little while ago, but it's still irritating me even now. And for those of you who may not remember, about 2-3 months ago, I reviewed Gatchaman Crowd Season 1. And I did not realize this at the time. Oh, and Gatchaman Crowds is a reboot of the Gatchaman action show from the 60s, 70s, and whatever. But basically, Gatchaman Crowds is a cult anime that a lot of people think is very smart, philosophical, has a great story, great characters. I, on the other hand, think it is very dumb, generic, says the same thing everything else says nowadays, and has really boring and annoying characters, save for OD. Now, the thing is that going into the second season, I was actually psyched. I was hearing good things and from people I trusted. And the thing is, I was actually, for the first 2, 3, 4 episodes of this, really enjoying myself. It looked like all the problems had been fixed and that the writers were actually trying to do something better and different from what they had done before. As we enter a plot that begins with Hajime and the rest of the Gatchaman, some point after season 1 ends, it doesn't really say how much time has passed, but basically it follows them as they start up a new adventure. And we actually start off with a big action-packed 15-minute OVA type thing that just gets you right into the story, gets you right into the scene. It's fun, it's big, it's got the Gatchaman doing cool stuff. It's everything I wanted to see in Season 1. And the plot goes as followed as we meet a new Gatchaman, Tsubasa. A lot of people actually don't like her. I think she's not the problem. But basically, she's a country bumpkin Gatchaman who they run into. She gets her powers from JJ. And they also meet an alien, Sadra. And immediately, again, we are fixing the problems from last season. Tsubasa at first is really cool and really relatable, and you get the character. Sadra is a nice change of pace. I like the design. I like its subtlety. And again, I like the fact that we actually have action. And we have a plot going on this time. It's not last time where it's just every generic team cliche they can work in for every 20 minutes. But here we actually have a cool plot going, and it's followed up with a great, cool new bad guy, whose name I barely remember because he's only in it for about 10 minutes. But basically, this bad guy's plan is to take the crowds, turn them evil, and use them to get people against the crowds for his own evil ambitions. And after 2 or 3 more really fun fight scenes, everything just sort of stops as we get into our main plot for this show. Mind you, our main plot has nothing to do with action or aliens or saving the world. It's about Sadra wanting to be prime minister so he can unite everyone's hearts. I'm not making this up, people. Someone thought this was a good idea. And here's the reason it's a bad idea. Among other things, your bad guy who you built up for 2 to 3 episodes just sort of disappears and isn't mentioned again until the end. And on top of that, you have the Gatchaman who, once again, just sit around and do nothing. You can completely tell what's going to happen with Sadra as president. And even though it's not done as bad as I was expecting, it's still just the same generic cliche story you've seen 1,000 times with this type of character. You know exactly what's going to happen. You can basically predict it beat per beat. And even though it does it in a nice way and in a way that didn't make anyone feel like an idiot, except the Gatchaman, it was still just a generic, boring cliche. And what are our Gatchamen doing in all this time? Well, you have Hajime, who is supposed to be our protagonist, the one moving the story forward. This time around, all she's really concerned with is just making one-liners and puns. She doesn't really do anything the whole series. She's got Berg Krotz hiding inside her, which sounds really perverted, and that never really goes anywhere. Also, they're really making a big deal that she has huge boobs. I have no clue what that was about. You have Blondie McBlonderson, who has 3 lines in this and does nothing. Utsu's useless, OD's useless, Joe is useless. Mind you, the 2 characters I like and the one I was able to tolerate basically do nothing. I don't even think Odi and Utsu have a full page of lines in this. Plus, a lot of what happens in this is Joe's fault. And that's pretty much all I can say about Insight. It's more of the same crap I couldn't stand from last season, amplified by taking away the things I actually did like. None of the characters are particularly interesting, and after about halfway through, Tsubasa stops being an interesting character and just turns into this whiny brat who I can't stand, and she also has a very cliched story arc. And I also really don't like anything done with Sadra because, as you'll figure out very quickly, there's no stakes in anything that happens in this. Oh, and Rui is still here, and he's now twice twice as annoying as last season. At least in last season, you could sort of say he was a kind of villain, but here he's just sort of boring, generic, and he also, like the bad guy, just sort of comes in and out with no real relevancy to the plot. And I guess when all's said and done, that's what I really don't like about Insight at all. And that's that the characters don't have any forward momentum, and the story just sort of remains stagnant as it just sort of is doomed to do what you've seen a million times. If the Gatchaman were at least trying to do something and fix a problem, then I could get it, but once again we get this annoying philosophical garbage that's completely wasted in all this, along with your gorgeous animation style, which is also totally pointless. Essentially, Gatchaman Crowd's Insight has all the intelligence and ideas of a Matt Smith episode of Doctor Who, with the boring, annoying length of a Tom Baker episode of Doctor Who. Nothing about this series works. Nothing really makes sense. The thing is that it's a little less annoying than season 1, because at least in season 1 I was expecting something good, but here this is just a boring mess. It's all over the place, but for some stupid reason people liked it, and if you did, again, like I always say, that's fine. It's not my place to judge you, but please, in the comment section below, tell me why. I want to know why people like this garbage. I will say Gatchaman Crowd's Insight is a 3 out of 10 on the sci-fi scale, because again, first few episodes, very entertaining, very engaging. Rest of it, just a pile of garbage. Please don't make my mistakes. That's why these reviews are here. But what did you think? In the comment section below, like I said, give me your thoughts on Insight, whether you liked it or not. Remember, to each their own. And as always, click to like and click to subscribe for next week so we can get back to something positive.